Are you asking me my
Yeah.
opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed it unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter.
That's not fair. You asked. Up next, we have to talk about Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, because she has her special way with the media. She is very combative, and understandably why. Obviously, the media, by and large, is pretty antagonistic towards the president, and it's her job as press secretary to be the president's biggest fan and to defend everything he's saying and push his talking points out to the world. But she just had this exchange with a reporter from The Hill, who he's more liberal leaning. He's a columnist and analyst for The Hill, and his name is Niall Stanage, and I know him because he does Rising with Robbie Suave, who I'm a fan of, and I'm on the same page with on a lot of issues, actually. But anyway, Karoline Leavitt got into this argument with him, and the clip is going viral of her destroying the reporter, but I think it's a little more complicated than that. Here's the Mediaite headline: "You're a left-wing hack. Karoline Leavitt explodes on columnist who accused ICE agent who shot Renee Good of acting recklessly." And then it shows you basically the whole exchange here and reminds you who the people involved are. But we actually have this clip pulled up that we're going to watch.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Nome spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 US citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
So I'll pause. We're going to get to the viral moment, which hasn't come up yet, but I like to show you a broader context of the clip, not just a little tiny soundbite. But this isn't an unfair question, right? Your job is I've seen clips from right-wing media people who get brought in under the Trump administration's new press pool policies, influencers they brought in, and their questions are, obviously I'm being hyperbolic here, but it's what's your favorite flavor of ice cream, Caroline? Or doesn't the media suck really bad? The mainstream media, aren't they really bad, Carol? That was kind of Tim Pool's question when he went there. And to me, it's don't show up. I don't even necessarily disagree, but it's a waste of time. And yeah, you might be ideologically sympathetic with them, but your job as a member of the media is still to hold powerful people to account. And so I would like those conservative people to, if they're going to go to the White House, ask questions about pushing them in a more conservative direction. Be like, hey, why aren't you following through on these pro-life policies you promised? Why aren't you following through on the Epstein files? What happened to this and that? So even if you are not, it's not that they have to become liberal journalists and push on those issues, but they should be pushing on something, because otherwise, what's the point? That's not journalism. That's just PR. But this guy, he's asking a valid question. You say everything's going swimmingly with ICE, but we've seen citizens detained, we've seen people die in custody, and maybe there's a perfectly good answer for that. Well, those citizens is just a few people out of thousands and thousands. Errors happen. They were released. Oh, the people that died, it was an unrelated medical issue. It wasn't them being killed, though there are a few reports about that. It's maybe there's a perfectly good answer for that. But she instead decided to spin it back on the reporter and kind of go after him. Listen to this.
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed it unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So this is ridiculous because she asked him for his opinion and he's like, oh, do you want my opinion? So he wasn't coming out leading with a personal bias, right? But she then asked him for his opinion, and he gave an opinion that the ICE officer was wrong to shoot Renee Good. That's fine. He can believe that. She can think the officer was justified. That's a position a lot of the country holds. The polling on that is not good for the ICE officer. And she's like, well, then you're for a left-wing hack. I'm sorry, what? If I'm hosting a press conference and I'm a Democratic official and there's, a conservative columnist from a newspaper there and they ask me a question and I go, well, are you pro-life? Tell me your opinion. And they go, you want my opinion? And they go, yes, I'm pro-life. I'm going to say, you're biased on abortion and you don't belong here. That's not fair. You asked. But she really doubled down on that. Listen to this.
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack, you're not a reporter, you're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist. Kelly.
So I'm sorry, but I just find this really unreasonable. There's obviously lots of examples of biased reporters in mainstream media being unfair to Republicans, but you asked this dude for his opinion. He then provided it, and then you attacked him for having an opinion and being opinionated. That doesn't make sense, especially because the Trump White House has brought in conservative activists and influencers like Riley Gaines, like Benny Johnson, like Tim Pool, as part of the press pool to ask questions. And nobody believes, they wouldn't even claim to be objective reporters who don't have opinions. They have a perspective. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's bad that they're there. They have big platforms. They're influential. They should be. But then you can't say that just because somebody has a perspective, which you asked for, by the way. Again, I'm not over that. That's crazy work. But so just because someone has a perspective doesn't mean they don't belong. There are some journalists who strive for objective neutrality, but there are other people who do political commentary and are giving opinions. And this guy is a columnist. He does Rising. He's not just a straight down the middle reporter. And that's okay. The same way it's okay that Benny Johnson gives his opinion on things. They're not perfectly unbiased. And for her to say that they have, you have an opinion that I asked you to give, and because you have a perspective, you're biased and don't belong here, while simultaneously making it a signature part of her policies as White House press secretary. And I actually kind of agree with this. Bring in influencers, including people with obvious perspectives and biases who aren't neutral at all, but are right-wing. That makes no sense. Clearly, you are allowed to have an opinion and be part of the press briefing and ask questions. You just don't like his opinion and you didn't want to address it. And what's unfortunate about that is that her whole personal tirade against him that went viral, and everyone's like, oh, Karoline Leavitt owns reporter. I don't think she owned him. I think she made a scene and was unprofessional for no reason and didn't make a good point. But it distracted from what could have just been a substantive answer, right? Which is, obviously, we don't want citizens detained by ICE, but I'm concerned about the number of Americans murdered by illegal immigrants. That point she made is at least a substantive response. It's the other side of the issue. So why not lead with that instead of going insanely aggro on this reporter, asking him for his opinion, then using the fact that he gave it as a reason why he shouldn't be there? I thought that was really unfortunate and kind of, sadly, somewhat par for the course with Karoline Leavitt, who I understand why Trump Republicans take such an adversarial position towards the media, because obviously the mainstream media is not on their side. But you got to choose your battles a little bit. And if you're constantly coming off this aggressively and going for people's throats, it's not a good look. I would really save that ire for when it's actually warranted. And to me, at least, this was not that kind of a situation. And listen, I've actually... a little while back, I reached out to a couple White House officials about participating in a press conference, but I don't think they would like me either. I think she might crash out on me in a similar way because I wouldn't go there and ask her what her favorite flavor of ice cream is, right? I'd go and ask about something where I think they're not meeting their promises or they're not being forthcoming or straightforward with the public, because that's the point. And so if people are going to ask you adversarial questions, that's actually good. The problem that I had with mainstream media during the Biden years and the years before that was never that they asked too many tough questions of Republicans or were too hard on them and scrutinized the things they were saying and doing. It's that they often did not do the same for Democrats. But the solution is not also being soft on Republicans. It's actual serious adversarial journalism. So I don't think this guy did anything wrong, personally. But that's just my take. You guys will have to let me know what you think. in the comments.